All right, I'll call this special meeting of the Waco ISD Board of Trustees to order. All items to be discussed or voted upon this evening have been posted as required by state law. I extend a warm welcome to those of you who are present and to our television viewers. We have any public comments, Monica? No? Okay. So next on our agenda is to consider, discuss, and take action regarding single-member trustee district boundaries following the 2020 census. Thank you, Professor Morrison, for joining us again. And I think we're down to two plans, and just to make sure I understand what we're doing, we have the original plan, and then the changes that Mr. Davis requested, and then you've cleaned up precincts in both?
Some election precincts, yes. You
cleaned up the split precincts in both plans?
Some of them, not all.
Some of them, not all. Some, the ones you could. Okay. Okay, well, I'll let you summarize where we are, and hopefully we can.
All right, I will. Everyone's been through this before, so the presentation tonight simply focuses on what's happened since we last met. And I guess the biggest thing that's happened since we last met is you guys hit a home run.
Yeah.
So congratulations, it's great for Waco. All right, let's see. Here we go. Just as a reminder, the reason we're here is because when you look at the 2020 census under the current lines, we have a spread between the district with the highest and the district with the lowest populations that's over 20% of an ideal district. And once you hit 10%, you lose your presumption of constitutionality. So we're here because of that. As a reminder, the plan that we first looked at had actually these 5 changes plus one, which drew Trustee Vidania out of his district. I think we got that fixed. So those circles identify the areas that you've seen before in detail, and the only places in the district lines that are changed are within those circles.
Okay.
The plan that you looked at earlier is based, here's the lines, but here are the numbers, and it had a 7.53% maximum deviation. It was below 10%, did not try to get to 0 because did not want to continue adding population to districts that had a minority profile where it would have continued to lower those profiles. These are the lines, and the blue dots that you see are simply approximations of the residences of existing trustees. The reason we take that into account is not to keep you guys in office, but it's to allow the people who've selected you for this office to be able to continue to keep the representative that they've chosen. And so the Davis suggestions to that, you can see over on the right center, you've got a couple of yellow lines. And when I drew that plan, I moved some areas from 1 to 3 and 3 to 1. And what Trustee Davis has suggested is when you go over to the right, just before you go out the border, that area which I had put in 3, he suggested that it go back to 1. And then you see an area just to the left of it, which goes into downtown. I had put that area in 1, and his suggestion was to move it to 3, which you'll see in an upcoming slide. So the maximum deviation, if you follow the Davis plan, is actually lower than the one I presented. It's 4.33. And to front load, everything I'm showing you tonight, whether you pick the original or the Davis, or choose to adopt one of the other variations to a plan you pick, all of these, in my opinion, satisfy the constitutional and statutory requirements. There's not really a legal basis to pick one over another. And when I give you the plan I originally suggested, it's kind of like a preseason football poll that suggested Oklahoma could play football this year. And that's my alma mater, and they've established they cannot consistently play football. So congrats to my employer for 44 years, Baylor University. These are the areas of cleanup in the original plan. And the only area that differs, if you look at the very top left, that's a 2-block area where we split an election precinct that's really unnecessary with the lines. If you look down at the bottom left, you see a small area near Beverly Hills, just to the west of it, again, where we've split an election precinct, and if we move that small triangle, we make it whole. If you go over to the right-hand side, at the very bottom, you see a square that was moved from 1 to 3. If we put that back in 1, that avoids splitting an election precinct. And then just above it, the little area that looks kind of like a squared-off heart is downtown. And that's another area where if we put that back into 1, we avoid splitting the election precinct. Now, we do have split election precincts still, but these were 4 areas where we could reconstitute an election precinct, which simplifies, 1, drawing up the ballots, but 2, it means fewer people have to figure out who they're voting for the next time. If you follow that cleanup, we actually get the maximum deviation down to 3.5. That maximum deviation is the lowest of any of the plans or variations. But as I said, all of them are within constitutional and statutory tolerances. If we go down from 7, which is where my initial plan was, to 3.5, as I've said earlier, we don't get a ribbon for going lower. We have excuses. And in this instance, it actually improved the maximum deviation to address those split election precincts. Had it gone the other way, and it does slightly in the Davis plan suggestions, the excuse or the justification for it is the convenience of the voters, and that's a perfectly acceptable justification. Here are these 3, and I'm sorry for the fuzzy map. Some come out fuzzy and some come out clear, but these are the 3 of the 4 areas you saw before. The only difference between the 2 plans on reconstituting election precincts is that little squared off heart area you see up just kind of the right central, which we could put back into district in the original plan. Under the Davis plan, that puts us out of constitutional sync. So we've left that out. But we've still put 3 back together. And we're going to have split election precincts somewhere. So the fact that that one is split here and not in the original plan, again, is not a justification for picking one over another. You can see that with the Davis plan at 7.53, so the maximum deviation has gone up slightly. In the original plan, the maximum deviation went down slightly when you dealt with reconstituting election precincts. This is simply side by side, and I think Kyle has presented you with the Davis stats, the ones on the right, the original plan you've had for some time. And you can see that if you left the plans as they stand, the Davis plan has a lower maximum deviation than the original. And if you go to the changes to reconstitute those election profiles, it basically flips. And in a nutshell, that's it. The Davis suggestions only affect districts 1 and 3. Those are the only districts that change under the Davis suggestions. The reconstituting your election precincts affect 4 of your districts. And so that's why you see some of the numbers stay the same and some of them differ. But Madam President and Board, I'm happy to answer questions. At this stage, I think it's purely a matter of what the Board sees as the best approach to serve the district, and that any of these 4 possibilities, either the basic plans or one of the basic plans with the variation that deals with election precincts, is justifiable. I can keep talking, I'm lawful, but I've said everything that I know to tell you, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Well, I have a question. So when you look at the original proposed plan, and you look at that max variation 1633, max deviation 7.53, and the numbers, far left column, and compare that with Mr. Davis's plan with the precinct cleanup, it's confusing because there are several of these numbers over here that are exactly the same.
That's right, because his changes only affect 1 and 3, so 2, 4, and 5 stay the same.
But one's the same, and 3's the same. So slides 7 and 13.
Oh, well, you may be looking at an old one. One of the ones that we had earlier had Trustee Vidania in the wrong spot. Are you looking at what we've got up here? Because the slides I'm looking at for the Davison original plan, as well as the variations.
Oh, yeah, so go back one slide. So that, the right side original plan, max variation 16, or max variance 1633.
Right.
And then go to the next slide. Davis plan with precinct changes, max variation 1633, same max deviation. That's our concern.
That's what I just, the
And
confusion.
on both of those, 1 and 3 have the same total population number for 1 and 3. 21906. Oh no, it's not the same on this one. 21906.
Well, I think, okay. I would think that, you know what, the original plan and the numbers are really irrelevant, because what we need to consider is the original plan with these precinct changes or Davis' plan with the precinct changes.
Well, and again, the first time I presented it, we had Trustee Vidania in the wrong district. The next time, the slide at the very end corrected that. There was one earlier that did not, that I pointed out at the meeting.
Okay, all right. Well, Mr. Guillory or Mr. Vidania, you have any questions? No?
You said under Davis' plan, it's just only affects
1 and 3. Now, the one difference between the Davis plan and the other is that one downtown area that's between either 3 and 5 or stays in 1, depending on where that little squared off heart goes. So to that extent, the choice has that small 3-block or 4-block area that affects 5. But the other changes that affect 2, 4, and 5 are the same in both variations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion for one or the other.
I'm all right with accepting Davis's plan.
All right, a motion to approve the Davis plan with election precinct changes as presented on page 15.
Yes.
Is that a second? Thank you, Mr. Giller. Although, okay, any further discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you for your work. Thank you for, yeah, appreciate your time. Okay, next on our agenda is to take appropriate action regarding the canvassing of the votes for the November 2nd, 2021 bond election. Mr. DeBeer.
Thank you, Madam President. On November 2nd, voters in Waco ISD considered whether or not to authorize the district to issue $355 million in bonds to replace 4 schools with new facilities in the same locations and renovate a fifth campus. Ultimately, voters approved issuing those bonds with 2,284 voters voting in favor of the proposition and 1,598 voters voting against the proposition. In your packet, you'll find an order canvassing the election and confirming those results, which are in the reports provided by the county. You also have a letter of certification from the county elections administrator in your packet confirming that those reports are accurate.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions, Mr. DeBeer? All right, well, of course, it was a huge victory for the district, and it's very exciting. We had almost 59% in favor of the bond program, so 59.4? I had 58 point.
58.84. When you take out the folks who were undervotes, we had 33 people who who voted but didn't cast a ballot on the proposition.
I see, okay. Okay, so before us tonight is the approval of the order canvassing the returns. So unless anybody has any other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the order of canvassing and returns and declaring the results of the bond election as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Padania.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Izzetti. Any other questions, comments? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, we have any announcements?
3 very brief announcements. The first is that this is the last week for our Thanksgiving meals, which are an awesome Waco ISD tradition. I'd encourage families that haven't had a chance to participate yet to be sure and check the schedule at wacoisd.org, and if they're able to, join their students for Thanksgiving lunch when it's at their campus. Coming up, we have a number of vaccination clinics. We continue through the partnership with the Waco-McLennan County Public Health District to host clinics on our campuses for students, staff, and in some cases, members of the public as well. This Friday, we have a clinic at Lake Air Montessori, and next Monday, the first day of Thanksgiving break, we're actually hosting a clinic during the day for staff, for students, for other folks at University High School in the gymnasium there. We encourage people to pre-register for the clinics by visiting covidwaco.com and clicking on the round button that's kind of a navy blue and on the left-hand side of that homepage. And then finally, we just mention that Friday is an early release day for our students and an in-service afternoon for our staff as we head into Thanksgiving break, and our offices and campuses are closed the following week. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We are adjourned. Good night. See you Thursday.